What's up, everyone? Welcome to You're Not Alone Conversations. This is powered by Spot, and I'm your host and presenter, Geetika Seth. Today, we have a very special guest. She is one of the most fearless women that I know. And because of her, I think I've been able to become a little braver, especially during the entire pandemic last year. So, welcome, Neha Modi. She is
Yeah.
the founder of Raneh Beauty. She's the co-founder for BDesir Cosmetics, and she's also the vice president of the Canadian Embassy charity called Canassist. So, welcome, Neha. Thank you so much for being on You're Not Alone Conversations. For starters, I have to highlight the fact that she started Raneh Beauty during the pandemic. So I really want to know a lot more about this, and I'm sure the viewers also want to know, how did you A, come up with the idea, and B, weren't you scared of starting something new while the entire world was in lockdown? Like, how did all of this happen?
So, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. I've been very regularly following all your podcasts, even through the pandemic, and I must say you've been doing a great job. Like, it really helps connect people and understand what each one of us is going through, right? So you're doing a great job, and I am really excited to be here. In terms of starting Raneh Beauty, actually Raneh Beauty was launched in 2019. So Raneh Beauty is an online education platform for the beauty industry, right? Very similar to Byju's or White Hat Junior or any of these tech ed platforms.
Right.
So being in the beauty industry for about a decade, I really wanted to give back to the industry, and I did see a very major lack in the quality education in the skill segment of the beauty industry, whether it was makeup, whether it was hair, or any of these, right? And also there was this mass gap between the tier 1 and the tier 2, tier 3 cities, where there was this abundant supply of academies, beauty schools in tier 1 cities, whereas tier 2, tier 3 cities had very limited access. And also, for them, traveling to tier 1 city it's not that easy, right? So and they're great educators across the country, and then there are great educators outside India too. So being leading me this year, I have had access to great makeup artists, hairstylists, skin therapists, all of these across the world, and I wanted to connect them to the audience here in India, to the people here in India, so that they could learn from the best, just sitting right at the convenience of their home, right? So that was one of the things that I've been wanting to do, and it was launched in 2019. But at that time, the acceptability of learning online, like learning beauty, learning makeup, because it's such a touch and feel thing, was very less. But as the pandemic hit, people were forced to go online, right? Like, even like my mom, like, who would never order anything online, went online to order groceries or to order medicines or whatever. So everybody had to learn how to start using the internet in India, right? So people were forced to go online, and the acceptability went multiple folds, right? And that's when I thought this is the right time. So in March we were hit by the pandemic really, but the lockdown happened, and I had about a month's time where BDesir, my main business, was slowed down a little bit. So I thought this was the best time. People were accepting things online. People had learned how to use the Zoom app, which was amazing, right? So that's when I decided to launch this, and we were very pleasantly surprised by the acceptance rate. Like, our first class had like about 700 or 800 students, so which was amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think the fact that they had access, people from tier 2 and tier 3 cities had access to
Mhm.
all these leading makeup professionals, right? Which
Right.
generally they don't, which they only see on their Instagram pages, and they don't really have that interaction chance to
Mhm.
interact with them. So I think it was a great initiative. But as you mentioned, like your main thing is with BDesir, and I mean,
Mhm.
I've personally heard, of course, a lot of stories from you, but
Mhm.
would you be able to share with us some of your journey with BDesir? Because I know you went to a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. How was that like
Mhm.
interacting with people from there as a woman entrepreneur, as someone who's in the beauty industry and a woman?
Right. So, before getting in the industry, right, the beauty industry from an outside, like you could feel that the beauty industry, it must be easier for women. It is a women dominated industry, but it's actually not. It is a very male dominated industry. Sometimes I could be in a room of 20 men and I'd be the only women. Like I also looked at it in both ways. Like it was a challenge because I was the only woman and it could be intimidating, but it's
Right.
also an opportunity because you stand out and you would be remembered or whatever, right? So this so again, like I I am born I was born and brought up in Calcutta, right? Which is
Right.
very, very different. It's a very different lifestyle there. The mentality, the thought process is very laid back. I moved to Canada.
Hmm.
I lived there for about 8 years, and then Canada is a very different country. It's very pro women, and very different culture compared to Calcutta. And then I moved to Delhi to set up my business, which was my first time living in Delhi, which is again very different, very raw.
Yeah.
So it's been very interesting. So we chose Delhi because being the capital. Starting B this year was something that I started, out of, I would say, passion,
Hmm.
right? Because of my interest, deep interest in the beauty industry, understanding one product from another, or understanding makeup, something that came very, very naturally to me.
Right.
Uh, Two was, I wanted to give back to India. I am very patriotic, and I do believe that there is immense potential here in India, and I wanted to come back and give back to India. And the most important reason was that, very early on, like coming from a traditional Indian family, one of my fears was growing up. I saw us women, right? Like I saw my mother, my aunts, my grandmom, like most of their life decisions, largely their life decisions, were either controlled by, their father, and then eventually when they get married, it would be their husbands, and the in-laws would
Hmm.
also have a very important role to play in it.
Right.
And one of my fears was to not have somebody else control my life, right? And that gave me the courage. Like I fought that fear, and then I was like, the only way that I could do that is I have to take actions to empower myself. So
Hmm.
whether it was through education, whether fighting to go out of India, that was the first female in the family to, decide to go out of India, and
Hmm.
so doing things like that, that empower me as a woman, right? So when Be This Year was also one of the steps, is because I always wanted to, do a business of my own. It's very funny. I used to be in class 6, and then, the teachers would come up, and then they would ask every student who wants to be what. And
Hmm.
then somebody would get up and say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a pilot. And I would get up and say, I want to be a successful businesswoman. And then all the class would start looking at me. This is something that I wanted to do since I was very, very young,
Hmm.
because I felt it was very empowering. Also, at the same time, when you're running a business, you also have a chance to give back. So that's how Be This Year came into effect. And then, my husband Ronak has a very important role to play in who I am now as well, letting me and my personality come out.
Right.
uh, it's it's just, I think, not my journey, but like every woman who is doing a business in India, also at some extent globally, right? Being traveled to different countries, I could say that there is still a very large, gender bias that is still present in the corporate world, whether it's India or outside, it's still a very male-dominated society, and it's a very male. It's like the male way of doing things, right? But again, I think it just that you have to keep driving through. You have to keep reminding yourself, why you are into it, why is this important, and then you have struggles every day, right? And then you just have to keep fighting those struggles and moving forward. In the beginning, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just asking if during this journey of setting up business in India, in Delhi, in a place like Delhi, I can officially say that.
Yeah.
And also interacting with people from different cities and different towns across the country. Has there been a moment where you felt like you couldn't do something, where fear sort of dominated your action in actually moving forward?
So, yes, I mean, there were times where I was scared, there were fears, but there was never a time. I think I'm not programmed in a way to think that I cannot do something. Like when somebody tells me that you can do something, or women are not supposed to do this, or women can do that, like my brain starts working in how can I not do it? Like that's how I function, right? So, yes, there are, safety is a big concern still in India for women, right? Like there are lots of psychopaths out there, when, I have a pretty large team. And when I was building the team or building the structure, there were times where I had to let go of people for whatever reason. I had to fire them. And I would wake up in the morning with threat emails from my ex-employees, right? Oh, wow. So receiving threat emails is obviously not, very pleasant. And in the beginning, it was a little bit of concern. But you know what? Like, I just realized that this is going to, either I could decide to just roll up in the blanket and say that I'm not going to do this, or I could just put on my business suit, take my bag, and I'm like, whatever it is, I'm still going to go ahead and do what is right for the business and what is right for me. So I think that's what it is. Like there will be, like, if you have to if you empower yourself, if you want to be successful, if you want to get there are challenges, but you have to be willing to take those challenges. And as women, I do understand we may come across more challenges and things which may be slightly more difficult than it is for the other gender. But the key is to not stopping, like believing in yourself and believing in the goal, and it's about moving on. Also, there's a really very interesting story. Since we have distributors and super stockists across the country, I went to Tamil Nadu, Chennai, right? And then I was visiting my super stockist, and then there's this market. It's like Chandni Chowk or Crawford Market in Mumbai, but it's actually worse. Like it's the tiniest lane that you could think of, and then it was crowded. It had rickshaw pullers. It had like every like the real India you could imagine, right? And when I was walking into that lane, and it had like really small, tiny shops, like the tire shops, like that kind of shops, which were like 50 square feet, 100 square feet, like that. And then when I would be walking in, I was the first time I'd had my business suit on because I want people to take me seriously, right? And I had this laptop bag on, and I'm walking in that street, and I keep going. It's full of men. I couldn't even spot a single woman. Like forget about a younger girl or whatever. Not even somebody cleaning the street. And as I walked into it, I was like, am I doing the right thing? Should I be walking alone? What about my safety? All of that, right? But But as I walked in, I realized that it was a pretty safe place. Like if I felt that I was unsafe, I would have left. But then after I went in, I did my meeting in the place, like you can't even imagine. It was not even 100 square feet, right? And it was just like an open shop, and I just sat there. I did my meeting, and then I came back, and he's still our super stockist. Like he's a very important you know, distributor for us. So and I feel good about it, and I could do it again. Like and you know, so it's about that. It's once you stop thinking that as a female, you know, I can't do this or I cannot do that. Like if if you're stuck in your comfort zone, right? Like then you know your fears is going to overpower you. The moment you come out of your comfort zone, you face your fears and you do actions that is going to empower you. That's the key, I think, for you to move ahead in life.
I think you've touched upon some really, really good points. First of all, thank you for sharing the story about firing some employees and actually getting threat emails. That is not a fun situation. And honestly, I think a lot of people would feel much deterred to do anything and actually fire anyone else after that. But when it's important to do it for your business, I think you just have to take a call. But one thing that I love that you spoke about is the fact that uh, even you had a little bit of fear when you were entering that market in Chennai. And all of us have it. Like when we're trying out something new or going to a new place, if we let that fear sort of overpower us, we can't
Exactly.
actually go through with it. So sometimes you have to sort of talk yourself through entering a new thing or doing a new thing and be able to do it. And of course, like you had the results. And here's hoping that people who are listening to You're Not Alone conversation with Neha right now will realize that if they talk through their fear when they're trying out something new and something different outside their comfort zone, that they would be able to actually do it. And if not, please listen to our conversation again, and hopefully, you will get the required encouragement from our conversation right now. But thank you so much, Neha. This has been such a nice conversation and such an enlightening one to that. And I'm sorry about the threat emails again. I think that that's just silly.
I mean, I think that's never going to stop, right? Like in life, there will always be some challenge or the other. But girls out there, please just get out of your comfort zone, break the stereotypes, and just do what your heart desire, right? And thank you so much, Geetika. I had a lovely chat with you.
This was really good. And everyone, please do keep watching You're Not Alone Conversations. We'll be back next week with our new conversation. Stay tuned. See you, Neha.
Bye.